Trigger warning, this episode contains discussion of suicide, which may be distressing for some listeners. If you are experiencing thoughts of self-harm, please call 988 or your healthcare professional.
All right, quiet on the set.
Camera speed.
Sound production, take one.
Action! Welcome to From Beneath the Hollywood Sign. If you love old movies, Hollywood history, or the golden age of filmmaking, you've come to the right place. This is the podcast that talks about amazing stories of Tinseltown from another era. Hear fascinating conversations with writer-producer Steve Cubine, who quite literally lives just beneath the Hollywood sign, and actress-writer Nan McNamara. Now your hosts, Steve and Nan.
Welcome, everyone, to From Beneath the Hollywood Sign podcast. Steve, it's officially summer.
Yes, it is.
The solstice has happened. We're barreling, we're just driving right toward the shortest day of the year.
Temperatures are rising.
And when temperatures rise, the sun is out, we're gardening. Doesn't it just make you think of musicals?
Why, yes, it does.
Don't you just want to tap and sing?
Absolutely. Just break out into song and dance. Yes,
well,
it does.
This week, you and I have chosen, I would say, lesser-known musicals that we think folks should check out during this wonderful time of year.
Absolutely. And they're maybe not the most well-known, and they're actually not even my top favorites.
They're not my favorites
they're just
either.
Musicals that I love, and they're musicals that I think people should revisit if they haven't in a while.
That's very well said. Well, let us dive in. My first choice is The Gay Divorcee, 1934 from RKO Studios.
Oh, good movie. And there's some queer coding in that movie.
You know what? I just saw that on TCM this month.
I love that. Which actually I want to do an episode about the queer coding of the era.
That would be very interesting. This is directed by Mark Sandrich. It's from the book by Dwight Taylor. He also wrote Top Hat, another great musical from 1935. There are 9 other writers who are credited on this. I'm going to let you all look that up rather than listing them.
Google that one, folks.
Music and lyrics are credited to Matt Gordon and Harry Revel, Con Conrad and Herb Magidson, and the great Cole Porter. The story goes, Mimi Glossop, don't
Great
you
name.
love that name?
Love the name.
Played by Ginger Rogers, wants a divorce from her absentee husband, but he refuses to give it to her. So she resorts to hiring a professional correspondent, played by Eric Rhodes, to fake the act of infidelity. However, professional dancer Guy Holden, played by Fred Astaire, falls head over heels for Mimi. It's love at first sight. He accidentally rips her dress when it gets stuck in her aunt's luggage. Guy doesn't know that Mimi's married, and through a series of coincidences and misunderstandings, Mimi and Guy may end up together, but not before a few lavish dance numbers.
Gotta have the dance numbers.
Yes. This is based on the stage musical Gay Divorce. Censors changed the title for the film because a divorcee might possibly be happy, but it was felt that the institution of divorce itself could never be.
That is so interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was too. Director Sandrich is perhaps best known for directing Holiday Inn, 1942, and 4 of the 9 films that paired Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers at RKO. Flying Down to Rio, 1933, Top Hat, 1935, Shall We Dance, 1937, and this film. He unfortunately died of a heart attack at the age of just 44 while in production for the musical film Blue Skies in 1946. Astaire and Rogers, by the way, did make a 10th film together for MGM, the Barclays of Broadway, in 1949. You might remember Flying Down to Rio was their first pairing, but they were not the film's stars. It was their dancing in the musical number Carioca. It was such a showstopper that RKO started looking for a follow-up film for Astaire and Rogers in the leads, and they found that in The Gay Divorcee, which was, as I mentioned, based on a musical that ran for 7 months on Broadway in 1932 and 1933, starring none other than Fred Astaire, as well as supporting actors in the film Eric Blore as the waiter, who we'll talk about in a second, and Eric Rhodes as the co-respondent. The film only retains one song from the Broadway production.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, just Cole Porter's Night and Day. The musical numbers were choreographed by Fred Astaire and Hermes Pan, who he deserves an entire podcast episode. He's the choreographer of over 100 films, including State Fair, which someone might be talking about later, Pal Joey, 1957, and My Fair Lady, 1964, and famously collaborated with Astaire on 17 of the musicals that he did.
Wow, what a combination.
As well as some of Astaire's later TV specials. There are so many many great character actors in this film. Edward Everett Horton, who I just
love him.
want to hug and just have him come home with me. He plays Astaire attorney friend, Alice Brady, who's just brilliant as Ginger Rogers' Aunt Hortense, a character who is just the definition of daffy. She's a delight. And Eric Bloor, who I mentioned, he just adds his comic genius to every role, and this is no exception. Every moment in this film, he just steals that he's on screen.
You know, we should make him the star of the month, 1 month.
We
because
really should.
Nobody remembers him, and he's so funny.
So good.
And what a career.
Astaire and Rogers have a couple of great dance numbers together in this, including Night and Day and The Continental, which is an elaborate 17-minute plus number, complete with 50 men and women dancing in black and white formal wear. Of course, they rip the women's skirts off at one point, so they're just in little bodysuits.
Oh, of course.
But my favorite musical number in the film is actually toward the beginning when Astaire dances and sings by himself a number called A Needle in a Haystack. He's in his hotel room getting dressed to go out looking for Ginger, and it's brilliantly choreographed, incorporating his valet, his clothing, and every piece of furniture in the film. It's done with what we think of now as that classic Fred Astaire ease. There's also a really funny and odd little number called Let's Canuck Canees, featuring a 17-year-old Betty Grable.
That's right.
It's one of her very first film appearances. This film garnered 5 Academy Award nominations, including one for Best Picture, and it won the Academy Award for Best Song, The Continental by Con Conrad and Herb Magidson, which was the first year that the Academy implemented the Best Song category. RKO actually devised a marketing ploy by doing demonstrations of the dance, The Continental. They were trying to get it to become a dance craze.
Very clever.
Yeah.
Very good marketing.
Right. The dance craze never took off. However, according to TCM's Dave Karger, the sale of Venetian blinds did take off because they are used prominently in the production design.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. That's very funny.
Yeah. So that's The Gay Divorcee. Steve, what do you got?
Well, you know, when I thought about the movies I wanted to talk about, I thought, well, MGM, that is the ultimate studio for the musicals.
Yes.
Their movies and their musicals specifically are heralded more than any other studio. So, for that very reason, I decided not to talk about MGM. I decided to pick 3 films, all from 20th Century Fox.
Great.
Which had great musicals in their own right. I mean, this is a studio that gave us Alice Faye and Betty Grable and Marilyn Monroe.
Right.
So I picked 3 little gems from 20th Century Fox, and the first one is 1945 State Fair, which you had just mentioned.
Yes.
You know,
great choice.
It's a wonderful movie. It's had quite a life. There have been 3 film versions, and it was also adapted for the stage in 1969 and later became an unsuccessful Broadway musical in 1996. Well, the first film version was in 1933, and it was directed by Henry King. It starred Janet Gaynor, Will Rogers, and Lou Ayres, and it was based on the 1932 best-selling novel by Iowa native Phil Stong. It was not a musical. It was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay.
Okay.
Well, the third version that was filmed was in 1962, and it starred Anne Margaret, Pat Boone, Bobby Darin, Tom Ewell, and in her final screen performance, the great Alice Faye, who I just mentioned.
Wow.
And it was kind of a disaster.
Yeah.
And a box office bomb. Well, I'm here to talk about the second version.
Okay, that's the one I know.
The best version of all.
Yeah.
And this, of course, is the 1945 Fox version, which was directed by Walter Lang, who most people know him as he would go on later to direct The King and I in 1956. It's shot in glorious Technicolor, and it includes incredible music by Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein. In fact, it's the only musical that Rodgers and Hammerstein actually wrote directly for the screen.
Oh, I did not know that.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
The musical direction of the film was by the great Alfred Newman and Charles Henderson. And now, for those of you who don't know the story of State Fair, it's this romantic, feel-good story that centers around the Frake family as they attend the Iowa State Fair. And that's basically, basically it.
I was just going to say, there's not a whole lot of plot.
There's not a lot of plot, but it's so wonderful. It's so delightful. And I love that every member of the Frake family goes into the fair wanting and needing needing something, and it's all about them getting it or not getting it, and maybe by not getting it, they realize something else. I just love that mechanism. Abel Frake, he's the patriarch, and he's played by the wonderful, charming Charles Winninger, who we've talked about a few times, I think, on the podcast, and he makes a $5 bet with his neighbor that his prized pig, Blue Boy, would win first prize at the fair. He's all about the pig. Well, Mrs. Frake, the matriarch, she's played by the always wonderful Faye Bainter, and she is hoping that her prized pickles and mincemeat will win over the judges and beat her snobby rival. So we're going to see how that goes.
Yeah.
So then we've got Wayne Frake, the son, played by big band singer Dick Haymes. And he's very bummed that his girlfriend Eleanor, played by Jane Nye, can't go to the fair due to her mother being sick. So he's lovelorn, missing his girlfriend. What will he find at the fair? And finally, there's Margie, their daughter, played by the luminous Jean Crane. Probably at the peak of her beauty. I mean, so beautiful. But she's very melancholy, this Margie girl, probably due to boredom of farm life and the fact that she's engaged to this very dull fiance, played by Phil Brown, who bores the bejesus out of her by talking about modernizing his farm. Sexy. Well, as it turns out, their visit to the state fair this particular year proves to be transformative for all of them. And that's fun to watch. As the fair unfolds, both Margie and Wayne experience love and self-discovery and the excitement of a world beyond their farm. And for Mr. and Mrs. Frake, they learn about their competitive side, which is really fun to watch. So at the fair, Margie meets Pat Gilbert, who's this dashing newspaper reporter from the big city of Des Moines, and he's played by the dashing Dana Andrews. And you know, once you've looked into the soft brown eyes of Dana Andrews, simple farm girls, they tend to forget about their dopey but dull boyfriends back home.
Yes,
and that's exactly what happens, as you can imagine.
Right.
Well, Wayne is also struck by Cupid's arrow at the fair when he's about to be cheated out of money at this ring toss booth by this shady carnival barker. He's rescued by this beautiful band singer, Emily Edwards, played by the beautiful band singer Vivian Blaine. And of course, Wayne goes gaga over Emily, who is much more sophisticated and much more worldly than he is. How will that turn out? Well, the movie is just full of romance and family fun and the incredible music, which includes the Academy Award-winning song, It Might As Well Be Spring. Now, other songs from the film that people know are Our State Fair, It's a Grand Night for Singing, and I-O-I-O-A, which I love.
Can I just add, Our State Fair is the theme song for the Minnesota State Fair, which is, I humbly say, it is the best state fair in the whole world.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's the Great Minnesota Get-Together.
The Great Minnesota Get-Together. Oh, I love that little tidbit. Well, you know, in the movie, Dick Haynes and Vivian Blaine, they were actually big band singers, and they both had wonderful voices. Well, our romantic leads, Jean Crane and Dana Andrews, they weren't singers. So, of course, they have to have their vocals dubbed, and they're dubbed by Luann Hogan and Ben Gage. I always like to give credit to the people that actually do the singing, so I'm going to give them a shout out. And if you don't know a lot about Luann Hogan, she only dubbed for actresses 5 times ever. 3 times for Jean Crane, State Fair, Centennial Summer, and Margie. Once for Joan Leslie in Cinderella Jones, 1946, and once for Virginia Mayo in The Princess and the Pirate, 1944. So limited. Now, Ben Gage was interesting. He had been a radio announcer and a bit actor, and he was more famous, though, for being married to America's favorite mermaid, Esther Williams. So they're the ones that actually do the voices for Dana and Jean. You know, and there's some great supporting characters in this one as well. And I just love these actors. We've got Paul Kettle himself, Percy Kilbride, who plays Mr. Frake's neighbor, Dave Miller, who makes the initial bet with him.
Yes.
And then there's Henry Morgan, who seems to be in every movie we cover.
He really is, yeah.
And he plays the shady carnival barker who tries to cheat Wayne. And there's the wonderful Frank McHugh. He has this very comic turn as this man trying to sell songs. And Josephine Whittle is perfectly uppity as Mrs. Frake's mincemeat rival.
Okay.
Everyone needs a mincemeat rival.
Yeah.
And there's Will Wright with his sort of hangdog face playing the hog judge. But best of all is the incomparable scene stealer Donald Meek, who plays the pickle and mincemeat judge who gets hammered sampling Mrs. Frake's booze-soaked mincemeat. It's such a performance.
I love him.
It's great. You know, despite not a lot actually happening in this musical, there's so much to love about State Fair. The music, the family fun, the romance. Is it corny? Yes. Is it old-fashioned? Absolutely. but I love it. It's the perfect movie to watch if you want to escape the horrors of watching the evening news or the current state of our affairs. So you can watch this one anytime you like for free on YouTube.
That's a great choice, Steve. My next one, it's a little off the beaten path in terms of being a musical, but it is considered a musical. There's just not a lot of dancing in it. It's The Singing Nun, 1966, from MGM, directed by Henry Coster, written by John Furia and Sally Benson, who also wrote Come to the Stable.
I love that. Get the ladies in there.
I know, 1949, which we've talked about. And she also wrote Meet Me in St. Louis, 1944. This film is very loosely based on the life of a woman named Janine Deckers from Belgium, who became a nun and was called, check my French here, Sœur Sourire, which is translated as Sister Smile.
Oh.
It's the story of a young nun, Sister Anne, played by Debbie Reynolds, who is sent to a convent in a poor part of Belgium to serve the poor in preparation for a mission trip to Africa with Sister Mary, played by the great Juanita Moore. Sister Anne, Debbie Reynolds, plays guitar and sings like an angel, which irks Sister Clooney, played by Agnes Moorehead, but enchants Mother Prioress, played by Greer Garson. When Father Clementi, played by Ricardo Montalban, hears her sing, he thinks she should record her music and asks his record producer friend Robert, because every priest has a record producer friend.
Of course they do.
Played by Chad Everett, for some recording time. Well, it turns out that Robert and Sister Anne are old friends, having both attended a music conservatory together. Robert knows how talented Sister Anne is. She records an album of religious folk songs that becomes a smash hit, giving Sister Anne an opportunity to perform on the Ed Sullivan Show, and he actually makes an appearance as himself.
That, a cameo.
But Sister Anne begins to question if what she is doing is truly God's work, especially when faced with the poor family she is trying to help, an adorable young boy played by Ricky Cordell, and his sister, Catherine Ross, who has to go to extreme measures to put food on the table by posing in some nude photos.
Oh, Catherine.
I know. So this is a film I remember seeing on TV as a kid. I was completely enamored by the story. My family grew up on folk music, the Brothers Four, the New Christy Minstrels. The guitar mass became popular during the early 70s. My sister Sue even played guitar at church.
Love that.
As a little girl, I wanted to become a nun. So give me a movie with a nun playing guitar and riding a blue Vespa, and I am so in.
I love that so much.
So for all the saccharin that's on the screen, and it might give you a toothache, there was a lot of trouble behind the scenes between Debbie Reynolds and the director, Henry Coster, and producer John Beck.
Interesting.
I'm somehow now whispering like she's
I
going
know,
to hear me.
like she's going to overhear us talking about her bad behavior.
Yeah, so they, quote, had creative differences, you know, that famous phrase that they always use.
Meaning we hate each other and we fight a lot.
Yes, exactly. Culminating in producer Beck calling Debbie's agent on the telephone and laying into him with a lot of profanity about Debbie Reynolds, not knowing she was on the other line listening on the phone. So Beck is barred from the set.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, Coster had such an awful experience. It's reported that that's why he ended up retiring as a director after this film was finished.
So Debbie Reynolds calls this man to retire?
Yes. This is the story that was reported in multiple sources.
Which is so ironic because the movie's so sweet.
Exactly. This was also Debbie Reynolds' last film of her MGM contract. She did learn how to play guitar for the film, although she's not actually the person you hear. She is doing the appropriate chords for the song. And she may have been a terror behind the scenes, but she sounds like an angel in this movie, as do the other people that are singing the harmonies. It's just fabulous. The film was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Score. It does contain 11 songs with music written by the real Singing Nun, and some of the lyrics were written by Randy Sparks. Do you know who that is?
Yes,
the founder
yes.
of the New Christy Minstrels. So no wonder I love this film.
No wonder it resonated with you.
As sweet as this film is, the real life of the Singing Nun ended quite tragically. While the song she wrote, Dominica, Nika, Nika, you know, that song, became a #1 pop hit and won a Grammy for Best Gospel Religious Song, she wasn't able to repeat that success. She left the sisterhood. She had financial difficulties when the Belgium government said she owed back taxes on the money she made from the music, even though she donated that money to the church.
Oh, wow.
And ultimately, she and her friend Annie Pescher killed themselves in a suicide pact.
Oh, wow.
It's really tragic.
Wow. Little dark ending to that sweet story.
Yeah. Her music, though, does live on in this film. And if you like Sweet and you like nuns, check this one out. It's available for purchase on streaming services.
I like sweets and I like nuns, so I'm going to watch it.
All right. Well, I think it's time for this week's Hollywood Pop Quiz.
Yeah, and the pop quiz question today, according to the American Film Institute, who loves to make lists, what are the best classic movie musicals of all time?
Oh.
And I'll give you points if you can name any of the top 5.
Perfect. I love the question. We'll be right back with that and more about summer musicals right after this.
Steve and Ann will be right back, but first another stop on the Hollywood tour. Well, some films just don't hold up very well. Collider.com offers this as proof. Widely considered the worst Best Picture winner of all time, 1929's The Broadway Melody follows the story of vaudeville sisters Harriet and Queenie Mahoney on their journey to Broadway. The duo has high hopes of living in the limelight and becoming superstars, but they encounter a number of unexpected difficulties when they begin to fight over the affection of a mutual new friend. Now, while the film was clearly of high enough quality in its era to earn a Best Picture win, the legacy and continued history of the genre has left A Broadway Melody in the dust. While many other classic films can be greatly attributed to having powerful and influential legacies that stand the test of time, some people think The Broadway Melody has only gotten worse with time. They feel that the forgettable songs, problematic plot points, and boring characters cement it as nothing but a relic of a bygone era. In fact, IndieWire says of all 97 Oscars Best Picture winners ranked, Broadway Melody is number 96. And now back to Steve and Nan from Beneath the Hollywood Sign.
Welcome back, everybody. Before we get further into our favorite musicals, or some of our favorite musicals, we're going to give a shout out to our Listener of the Week. And this week, we are honoring Nancy Scadden from Palm Coast, Florida, but originally a New Yorker. Nancy, you've been so kind with your likes and your comments, and especially for sharing our posts on your social media. We really appreciate the love and support, and you are our Listener of the Week.
Thank you, Nancy,
Thanks, Nancy.
and we love your name. So, you're up.
All right, so my next movie, it's definitely more well-known, and I just love it. It's Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, 1953.
That's a great one.
I know. You know what? Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, kind of like State Fair, it's had quite a pedigree. It started out as a 1925 novel by Anita Luce. In 1928, it was made into a silent comedy film, which starred Ruth Taylor and Alice White. Then it was adapted into a Broadway musical in 1949, which of course we all know starred the great Carol Channing, which was not a success, by the way, initially.
Interesting.
I know. And finally, it made its way into a musical movie in 1953, and it is glorious.
It really is.
It is Technicolor. It is written by Charles Lederer and directed by Howard Hawks. And of course, it stars the two maybe most beautiful women of the year, Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell. Mm-hmm. It was almost too much beauty and sex appeal to be contained on one movie screen.
Yes.
The story's pretty simple, really. Monroe plays Lorelei Lee, this beautiful showgirl who has nabbed herself a wealthy but totally dorky fiancé named Gus Esmond, played by Tommy Noonan, and his wealthy father sees her as a gold digger, which she is. And he's very suspicious of her intentions, of course, to his boy. Well, when Lorelei and her best friend Dorothy Shaw, played by Jane Russell, go on a cruise unescorted, Gus's father hires this private investigator named Ernie Malone, played by Elliot Reed, to follow them on the cruise and report any inappropriate behavior that could maybe get Gus out of this engagement. Well, of course, things get complicated when the girls meet Sir Francis Beekman, who Monroe playfully nicknames Piggy, and he's this old millionaire who takes a liking to Lorelei Lee, and he gives her this expensive tiara which belongs to his wife.
Oh.
It's all fine and dandy until his wife finds out.
No, that's not good.
So, of course, then Piggy decides that he's going to deny ever giving it to her. They think she stole it. You can imagine what happens from that. The supporting cast is just a treasure trove of some of the best actors working in show business. There was Charles Coburn, who played Piggy, who's always so wonderful.
Yep.
Taylor Holmes plays Gus's uptight father.
Oh.
And we have a little connection to Taylor
Yes,
Holmes.
we
which
do.
We might be doing an episode about him and his family.
Yes.
In the future. One of my favorite character actresses, Norma Barden, plays Lady Beekman, Piggy's wife. You may remember her from Strangers on a Train. She's the society woman who Robert Walker tries to choke.
Yes.
Very interesting. The great Stephen Garay plays the hotel manager. And I have to give a little special shout out to little George Winslow, who plays the kid millionaire, Henry Spofford III.
Oh, love the name.
Great cast. But one of the best things about the film is the music. The film used many of the winning songs from the Broadway musical, like Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, Bye Bye Baby, Just Two Little Girls from Little Rock, all written and composed by Jules Stein and Leo Robin. It also engaged songwriters Hoagie Carmichael and Harold Adamson to come up with 2 new songs, Ain't There Anyone Here for Love and When Love Goes Wrong, Nothing Goes Right. 2 classic songs from the movie. The music is just magical. And you can't talk about the music without mentioning the iconic musical number where Lorelei Lee, dressed in that Trevia-designed pink strapless, dancing with the chorus of handsome, distinguished-looking, tuxedo-clad men as they tempt her with diamonds and jewels and all this stuff. It was a showstopper and a real moment in pop culture.
Yes.
I mean, there's been spoofs and parodies and homages to that number throughout the years. I mean, SNL did a skit back in 81 called Downers Are a Girl's Best Friend. A little nod to maybe Marilyn's pill popping.
Oh.
Featured the brilliant Mary Gross in that skit. And of course, one of the best homages was Madonna's music video, Material Girl.
Sure.
Fantastic. It's also been spoofed and honored by the cast of shows like Glee, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and even Gossip Girl, where Blake Lively imagines she is Marilyn Monroe in that number. Can't imagine that. But some fun facts about the film. It was originally meant as a vehicle for Betty Grable and Ginger Rogers. But after Marilyn Monroe's impact in Niagara that year before, that changed things up a bit. They really wanted to capitalize on her popularity.
And I like having a brunette and a blonde as opposed to 2 blondes.
me
And maybe
too.
they would have changed their
It's
hair.
like
but
salt and pepper.
yeah. It's like you and me.
Yeah, exactly. We are. I'm Jane, you're Marilyn.
That's right.
Well, there's a great blooper in this movie that I just love. And it happens when they're doing the musical number, Ain't There Anybody Here for Love? Musical number ends and the Studley athletes all dive over Jane Russell's head into the swimming pool.
Okay.
The very last guy accidentally hits Jane Russell, knocks her into the pool, and it was a total mistake, but it worked so beautifully they kept it in the final cut.
Oh, I love knowing
So
that.
if you look at it and you look at the shock on Jane Russell's face, it was real.
Wow.
I love that. There was also a little pay discrepancy to this movie.
Okay.
When it was made, Jane Russell was actually the bigger star, and accordingly, Russell was paid $200,000 for the film, while Monroe made a measly $500 a week per her 20th Century Fox contract. Of course, things changed a lot after this movie. 'Cause
Yes.
Marilyn Monroe just blew up, and I'm sure she never worked for $500 a week ever again.
Yeah.
There's a really fun star cameo in the Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend number. If you look really closely, you can see, as one of those tuxedo-clad Studley men, you see future Oscar winner George Chakiris.
Oh,
That's one of the dancing studs.
Yes.
And also, a little fun fact, beloved actress and choreographer Gwen Verdon was the assistant choreographer on the film. I love that. The film was a big box office and critical success. It ended the year as the 7th highest grossing film of the year. But surprisingly, it received no Oscar love.
Okay,
Not one
interesting.
single nomination. Although George Lederer did receive a Writers Guild Award nomination for a screenplay.
Okay.
There's so many reasons to love this movie, but there's really just 2 main ones.
Yeah.
Marilyn Monroe
Yeah.
and Jane Russell. They were just incredible, and their chemistry was palpable.
Yes.
They had such great chemistry. When the movie started, there was all this gossip that maybe these 2 glamour girls weren't going to get along. You know, people love to pit female stars
They
against each other.
love to do that,
I
yeah.
know, which is sucky. Well, the gossip columnists, they had a field day. They tried to create this feud between the 2 women, but nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, the 2 women became really close friends, and they had a very genuine affection for each other the rest of their lives. They bonded over their relationships with athletes because Russell was married to Bob Waterfield, who was once a LA Rams football star, and Monroe was dating Yankees great Joe DiMaggio. So they had things in common.
Yeah.
Now, Russell, who was 5 years older and more established than Monroe, she took Marilyn under her wing and really tried to be a big sister to her. And Marilyn really trusted Russell, and she really let her into her inner circle. Now, Marilyn had some complications on set, and she was known for being a little temperamental and late and things like that. There were times that she would run to her dressing room and refuse to come out, and it was only Russell who could coax her out.
Wow.
So they had that kind of a relationship, which was nice. And although Jane was a devout Christian and Marilyn was interested in psychology, their friendship was not affected by this, which I find interesting. Marilyn once said, and I love this, Jane tried to convert me, and I tried to introduce her to Freud.
Interesting.
I know. And because of their incredible chemistry, the studio wanted to reteam this dynamic duo in another film, How to Be Very, Very Popular in 1955, but it never materialized. Instead, Betty Grable and Sherry North ended up in that film. When Marilyn Monroe died of an overdose in 1961, Russell felt deep sorrow, describing Monroe as, quote, very shy and very sweet girl and far more intelligent than people ever gave her credit for, which is sweet.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy we have this movie to remind us of just the magnetic star power of these two incredible actresses.
Oh, that's a great choice. I need to revisit that.
Oh, it's so great to revisit.
Yeah. Well, my last one is Summer Stock, 1950, MGM, directed by Charles Walters, written by George Wells and Cy Gomberg. 6 different songwriters in this film. Harry Warren, music, and Mac Gordon lyrics, writing most of the songs. Harold Arlen, music, and Ted Kohler lyrics, who wrote, of course, Get Happy. And Saul Chaplin and Jack Brooks wrote the remaining songs. Nick Castle is the credited dance stager. Have you heard that term?
No.
Not choreographer, dance stager.
What's a dance stager?
Yeah.
It must be the same thing, right?
Yeah, although Gene Kelly, it was really Nick and Gene Kelly. The story is a down-on-her-luck farmer, Jane Falbury, played by Judy Garland, finds her life invaded by a theatrical troupe led by director Joe Ross, Gene Kelly, after her younger sister, Abigail Gloria DeHaven, a wannabe actress who's in love with Joe, invites the group to put on a show in her sister's barn. Sound familiar?
I love that setup. Let's put on a show,
Let's put on a
kids.
show. But when Abigail leaves the production for New York City for a better offer, it opens the pathway for Judy to take her place, singing and dancing in the show, and for love to blossom between her and Gene. This story also features the great Marjorie Main as the farm's cook, Eddie Bracken as Judy Garland's milquetoast fiancé of 4 years. Dump that guy, right? And his father, played by the great Ray Collins, another one of my favorites.
I love Ray Collins from Perry Mason.
Yes. And Phil Silvers plays Herb, Gene Kelly's stage manager. Now, this was originally intended as a vehicle for Judy and Mickey Rooney, which makes sense. They were kind of doing a little nod to their earlier MGM films where they would put on a show in the barn. But Rooney didn't have the star power he once had, and Gene Kelly was fresh off the success of On the Town, 1949, so he was hired. Now, we could talk about Gene and Judy for days, but I just want to mention some details about director Charles Walters that I found really interesting. He had such an illustrious career. He was an actor, a dancer, and a choreographer on Broadway. He was signed in 1942 by Arthur Freed for the new MGM musical unit. He worked as a dance director from 43 to 46, and then he made the transition to full motion picture director, specializing in musicals and comedies. He remained at MGM in that capacity from 1947 to 1964.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he had a reputation as a woman's director. Some of his credits include High Society, 1956, Please Don't Eat the Daisies, 1960, and The Unsinkable Molly Brown, 1964. He also directed Judy in Easter Parade, 1948.
Love that.
Although you would never know it from the sweet and sunny disposition of this film, Summer Stock was also fraught with behind-the-scenes drama. Judy Garland, she was just 27 years old. She wasn't in any shape to work. She was at one of her lowest points physically and mentally.
I've always heard that she was probably at the peak of her drug addiction and the peak of her emotional issues.
Yeah. Some reports say that she had just gotten out of rehab, but she was happy to be working with Gene Kelly again. But because of her health issues, she asked to be released from the film. The studio refused. Oh, MGM, how you treated your stars. It's reported that the studio was also concerned about her weight. I have to say, she looks so gorgeous and so beautiful in this film. And healthy and sexy in these overalls and her short hair, and she's driving a tractor and singing Howdy Neighbor. And how can you resist her? Kelly and Garland had worked together on many other MGM pictures, including Kelly's debut in For Me and My Gal, 1942. Gene Kelly never forgot Garland's support, and he helped her get through this production. At one point, he even feigned an injury so that Judy could get the day off. According to TCM in Clive Hirschhorn's biography of Gene Kelly, director Walters said it was clear that Garland was in no position to work. There's a quote, "Gene took her left arm and I took her right one, and between us, we literally tried to keep her on her feet, but it wasn't easy. Emotionally, she was at her lowest ebb. Physically, she was pretty unsure of herself as well. There were even times when we had to nail the scenery down and provide her with supports so she wouldn't fall over."
Wow.
Now, when you watch this film, folks, none of this is apparent on the screen.
You can never see any of this when you see it, yeah.
Some say it was 3 months, some say it was 6 months after shooting ended. Charles Walters, or it was MGM, decided that the movie needed a big finale that didn't have it. So Judy was called back. Now, again, some say she requested doing Harold Arlen's Get Happy and also requested the costume, which is that famous half tuxedo and fedora.
Yeah, tilted fedora.
Oh my gosh, just classic. Walters did direct her in the added scene. It's probably become the most iconic Garland number of all time.
Yes.
And she rocks it and that costume like no one else can. According to TCM, she had lost 15 to 20 pounds at this point since the end of the filming.
And it's so obvious when you see that final number that she's changed so much physically.
It seems out of place in the film, but it is brilliant nevertheless. It's reported that Judy learned all that choreography and the number in one day.
Wow.
It would be the last thing that she would do at MGM. She was ultimately fired. Wow. A couple of other standout numbers in this film. Gene Kelly in the number Dig, Dig, Dig for Your Dinner. His athleticism, which we know him for as a dancer, is on full display. He does the most amazing barrel turns you have ever seen. I mean, I can't even tell you how many. As well as his solo number to the song You Wonderful You. It's known as the newspaper dance. And
it's iconic.
Yeah,
yes.
He just uses a newspaper and a squeaky floorboard. It's sheer genius. This was also shot after the film was completed, and Kelly reportedly said that it was the hardest dance number that he ever had to do. If you're a dog lover, you're going to want to see this film for the number That's Music to Me. I will say no more.
I know, I love it.
And just to wrap this up, Judy and Gene together, their perfection, their chemistry.
Power.
Oh my gosh, they're gorgeous together. They're wonderful to watch. I think you can really see their off-screen love and care. It really shines through. And what can you say about Judy Garland that hasn't already been said or written? Her ability to tell a story through song, it's peerless. She's also very, very funny in this part. You buy her as an independent farmer with authority.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah, and she also makes your heart break. Oh. So what a movie star.
There was nobody like Judy Garland.
No, you've got to watch this one, folks. It's streaming now on Max.
Wow. Well, my final film, again, out of the 20th Century Fox arsenal, it's a lesser-known musical called Orchestra Wives from 1942.
Oh, I don't know this one.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that I think should be better known. It's possibly the best dance band movie ever made, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And that's due to the involvement of the great Glenn Miller and his band, which, you can't go wrong with Glenn Miller.
Right.
This is the perfect choice for me personally because it's like a reunion of some of our favorite podcast subjects over the past year or two.
Oh, good point.
We have Ann Rutherford, we have Carol Landis, we have the Nicholas brothers, and we have Mary Beth Hughes, all of which we have covered exclusively here at From Beneath the Hollywood Sign. The movie's directed by Archie Mayo, the Great, with a screenplay by Carl Tunberg and Daryl Ware based on a story by James Prindle. It's the story, again, kind of a basic story. It's about Connie Ward, played by the great, wonderful Ann Rutherford, who I love. She's this young woman who, on a whim, she's a small town woman too, very small town girl, who on a whim marries Bill Abbott, played by George Montgomery, and he's a trumpet player in the Gene Morrison swing band. And of course, Gene Morrison is played by the great Glenn Miller and his band, of course. They fill in for the Gene Morrison band. Connie's introduction to being an orchestra wife is kind of rocky at first. It doesn't go so well, mainly because of the other orchestra wives. They are this mixed bag of petty, catty, jealous women. And when they see the new girl coming in, I mean, they're on it. These women, they travel around with their husbands on the road as they go from town to town as part of the band. So Connie has to adjust to life on the road as a newlywed, as an orchestra wife. So there's a lot coming at Connie all at once. To make matters even more complicated, she has to deal with Bill's ex-girlfriend, Janie, played by Lynn Barry, who just so happens to be the band's singer.
Oh,
and so she's there too. The pressure eventually gets to be too much for Connie, and she leaves Bill, but not before revealing all the dirt on all the other women's and their husbands, which wreaks havoc on the band, which ultimately results in this hilarious catfight between two of the other orchestra wives, Natalie, played by Carol Landis, and Caroline, played by Mary Beth Hughes. This also causes the band to eventually break up.
Okay.
So Connie has just caused the whole house of cards to fall down because she tells everybody secrets, which is kind of fun. Connie then decides to try to get the band back together, so she conspires with pianist St. played by Cesar Romero, to get them all together again. This leads to a reconciliation with Bill, and if you want to know more about the battling duo of Carol Landis and Mary Beth Hughes, you might want to check out our episodes about them.
Yes.
The cast is fantastic. Ann Rutherford and George Montgomery, they have this easy, nice chemistry together. Cesar Romero is his usual charming, caddish self. And the flock of bitchy orchestra wives, they're played so well by Landis and Hughes. And the third one was Virginia Gilmore, who's also really wonderful and awful to Anne. The supporting cast is chock full of fantastic actors. There's Henry Morgan, yet again, as the soda jerk who takes Connie to see the Gene Morrison Orchestra in the very beginning. And also Dale Evans, before she becomes Mrs. Roy Rogers and a Western star, she played Hazel, who is one of Anne's friends at the soda shop. A standout for me was Iris Adrian, the wonderful wisecracking Iris Adrian, who plays this woman at a bus stop. Grant Mitchell is wonderful as Dr. Ward, and Lillian Porter is fantastic as this Cupid doll cigarette girl named Mousie. Great cast.
Love the name.
I know, I love these names. But what I love about this musical is that the music is all organically tied to the story.
Yes.
You know, it's not one of those stories where a guy and a girl are walking down the street and suddenly they break into song and then backup dancers come out of the stores and they take over the street and they do this whole full number. And then when it's over, they go right back to walking down the street and talking. It's not like that at all. All the music is organic. It's on stage. It's part of the show.
Right.
Which I kind of like that. It's very well done in this movie, I should say. The songs are top notch. Alfred Newman, again, is musical director. Many of the film's songs were written by Mac Gordon and Harry Warren, and they're the team behind Glenn Miller's first film, Sun Valley Serenade, in 1941. The film also includes some of Miller's most popular hits, like Moonlight Serenade, which plays as the film opens. Other songs included People Like You and Me, Bugle Call Rag, and the romantic ballads At Last, which was later made so famous by Etta James.
Yes.
And then Serenade in Blue. Great song.
Yeah.
In fact, At Last was written for Miller's first movie, Sun Valley Serenade, and it was actually recorded by stars John Payne and Lynn Barry, which was actually dubbed by Pat Friday, who also dubbed her in Orchestra Wives. However, the song was cut from Sun Valley Serenade, and they saved it for this movie, so that's how that came to be. But the big hit from this film has got to be I've Got a Gal in Kalamazoo. We all know that one.
I love that song.
Yeah, it's a great song. In the movie, it features the saxophone playing of Tex Beneke and backup vocals from Marion Hutton, who of course we all know is a sister of Betty Hutton. Later in the film, when the Nicholas brothers reprised the number I Got a Gal in Kalamazoo in doing this specialty dance number, it is the best moment of the entire film. You just have to see their athleticism and their splits and their bounces. You have to see it to even believe that's humanly possible from two dancers.
I think you can find just that number even on YouTube.
You can.
Yeah.
It's just, go check it out. It's really wonderful. And if you want to know more about the Nicholas brothers, we featured them in episode 73 of our podcast several months ago, so you might want to check that out as well. The song I've Got a Gal in Kalamazoo ended up being the film's only Oscar nomination. Of course, it was nominated for Best Original Song, but it lost out to White Christmas from Holiday Inn.
Oh.
Tough call, but I would have gone with White Christmas.
Yeah, that is a tough call.
Yeah, a few fun facts. George Montgomery's trumpet playing was dubbed by Miller Band member Johnny Best. And if you look closely, you can see several future stars in the film. Notably, Jackie Gleason playing Ben, a band member who plays bass. Originally, the role that Ann Rutherford played was offered to Maureen O'Hara and then Linda Darnell. Both of them passed. I'm sure Ann is very grateful. And sadly, though, this would be Glenn Miller's final film. He joined the military shortly after the film wrapped and was killed when his plane was shot down over the English Channel. Now, Orchestra Wives holds a lasting legacy, I think, primarily for its association with the Glenn Miller Band, as I mentioned, and it's sort of a snapshot of the big band era, which is nice to view. It's also a snapshot of, I think, gender dynamics in the 1940s, especially looking at it from the perspective of the women.
Yes.
They're the orchestra wives. Their lives revolved around the demanding and transient world of these touring musicians they're married to. And the best reason to watch this movie, for me personally, is I do think it's Anne Rutherford's best movie. And she's such a wonderful leading lady. She's so dynamic. I'm surprised that this didn't launch her into more leading role parts.
Well, and that the film isn't more popular, because with that cast, we got to watch that tonight.
Yeah. And Anne loved making this movie. She talked about it so joyfully. I think it was such a joy for her to make. She loved George Montgomery. She loved the cast. She especially loved Lynn Barry. They were pretty close friends. I know she was close friends with Mary Beth Hughes as well. However, she didn't have a lot of fondness for 20th Century Fox, which I found this interesting. I remember her telling me so many times. She said, when I was at MGM, it was like family.
Okay.
When I was at Fox, cold as a fish.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, so take that, Daryl Zanuck. And I think you can watch Orchestra Wives, I believe, on YouTube.
You know, it would be interesting to do an episode on the various studios and the personalities, because Warner Brothers has its own thing and MGM has its own, and Fox,
do.
you know.
It's so true. Well, as Anne said, because I would ask Anne, did you know Geraldine Fitzgerald? She goes, honey, she was at a different studio. It might as well have been a different country.
Yeah.
She said, we had our little insulated
family,
and they had theirs, and we didn't really commingle, which I found very interesting.
Yeah.
I wanted to imagine Hollywood as this one big green room.
Yeah,
where everyone just
everybody
hangs
hung out.
and grazes over craft services.
Yeah.
But not so much.
Not so much, yeah. Well, this has been so much fun. And I know we started the episode by saying these aren't our top favorite musicals, but they are ones that are so worth checking out.
Yeah, they really deserve a second look. So if you get a chance to see any of these 6 movies, I hope you do. Yeah. And let us know. Email us and tell us what you thought of them.
Well, I can't wait to hear the answer to this week's Hollywood Pop Quiz.
Well, would you care to take a guess what the top 5 are, or at least the first?
I might have a list I just kind of made. West Side Story?
West Side Story came in at number 2.
Okay, I was close. Sound of Music?
Sound of Music came in at number 4.
Okay, I've got 2 of the top 5. Oklahoma?
Nope, didn't make the top 5. Shocking.
My Fair Lady?
Did not make the top 5.
What about The Music Man?
Did not make the top 5.
South Pacific?
Nope, you're missing the number 1.
I'm missing the number 1.
And it's so obvious.
It's so obvious.
Singing in the Rain.
Of course, it's Singing in the Rain. And we were going to talk about Singing in the Rain, but everybody knows Singing in the Rain.
Everyone knows Singing in the Rain. Yeah, number 1, Singing in the Rain, followed by West Side Story, The Wizard of Oz, The Sound of Music, and this one surprised me a little bit, Cabaret.
Okay. Yeah. It's funny when musicals have really strong books, strong storylines to them, you almost forget they're in the musical category.
Yeah, you really do.
So something like Cabaret.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everybody for listening. We would love it if you would give us a 5-star review wherever you listen, and follow us on social media. You can do that with our handle at From Beneath the Hollywood Sign on Facebook, Instagram, and you can watch the podcast on YouTube.
And we'd love to hear from you, so please email us at info@FromBeneathTheHollywoodSign.com. I love reading these emails. I read them with giddy, fan-like excitement.
How do you spell giddy, Steve?
Giddy is actually Giddy.
Thank you.
Well, that's
Inside joke.
this week's view.
From Beneath the Hollywood Sign.
You've been listening to From Beneath the Hollywood Sign with Steve Cubine and Ann McNamara, the podcast that celebrates amazing stories of Tinseltown from its golden era. Join us next week for another episode and learn something else about Hollywood you probably never knew. Take a moment and give us a 5-star rating and a positive review, and tell your friends about us too. It'll help grow the podcast. Visit Steve's website at FromBeneathTheHollywoodSign.com. The executive producers are Steve Cubine and Nan McNamara. Executive producer and post-production supervisor Lindsay Schnebley. Associate producer and researcher John Price Ritchie. This podcast is part of the Airwave Media Podcast Network. Visit airwavemedia.com to listen and subscribe to their other fine shows like The Box of Oddities and The Shallow End with Schnebley and Toth. Copyright 2025. All rights reserved. That's a wrap.
Summer loving happens so fast. I don't know the words.
Summer Lovin' had me a
blast.
Summer Lovin' had me so fast.
Happened so fast.
Happened so fast. That's it. Okay. Oh, you're recording. Stop.
Oh, no, stop.